Well, guys, we did have a big situation come out at the debate last Wednesday night when Vivek Ramaswamy, the young political superstar, came out and called the climate change agenda a hoax. He was booed for doing this, and I want to break this down, get into this. What is Vivek actually talking about? What are his beliefs? A lot of people twist this and create the straw man argument that, oh, you don't believe in climate change, when in reality, that is not the point at all. I'm going to talk about, we've gone very far on this, and yes, Vivek does believe that climate change is happening. I believe that climate change is happening. We want to fix it with nuclear energy. But, of course, they're going to say the straw man argument. You don't believe in climate change. You don't buy it. It's America's fault. And we need to do 50 things and infringe on our rights and stop eating certain things to save the environment, which is complete and total crap. And then if they actually care about people dying, we've got big time graphs to get to in this video regarding fentanyl and the flow of it from Mexico, which of course they've done nothing about in terms of closing the border. Trump comes out back in 2015, says we're building a wall. It's going to cost $15 billion. They lose their minds. Meanwhile, they write the Ukraine a $30 billion check every other week. So let's not secure our border, but let's send Ukraine more money when really it's a European issue. So guys, let's get into this. You can see Ramaswamy's remarks were booed by the crowd and slammed by former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who had some cracks at Ramaswamy saying he was Chat GPT. I'm going to be honest with Chris Christie. If there was anyone that was Chat GPT, unfortunately, it was Ron DeSantis. He came off very computeristic during that debate. But you can see we're not school children. Oh yeah, they asked, do you believe human behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand if you do. And that triggered DeSantis. He said, we're not school children, let's have a debate. Obviously, I do think Vivek and pretty much everyone there would have raised their hand. Yes, humans are causing climate change, but this whole idea that, oh, now we're causing climate change, we're so evil, we hate the environment. No, this is just human evolution. The reason we, protected the environment better in 1806 than we do now is because we did not evolve to this point where now we have technology with factories and billion-dollar, car companies and everything like that. So we've evolved. This is just part of human evolution, and we will evolve with our technology to protect the environment. But this is just such a brazen cult, and that's what Ramaswamy's trying to call out when he's talking about the climate cult. But you can see DeSantis comes out, we're not school children. Nikki Haley says, she called for China and India to cut emissions. By the way, she's exactly right, especially with China. India, believe it or not, emits less emissions than the United States. A lot of people think they emit more due to their poor air quality, when in reality, the number one culprit in terms of their pollution is actually construction dust, and also it's based off of high-density cities. But she is right about China. You know what? Let's just get to the China thing first. Who emits the most CO2? China at number one by a mile. The United States about half of that at number two. But when you actually dive into it and look at the real line graphs of the data, you can see the United States, we've cut it back now. And meanwhile, China just completely blows through the roof when it comes to CO2 emissions. So China continues to go significantly higher. And then you loved when they bring up the per capita. Yeah, guess what? The environment doesn't care about per capita. Per capita doesn't matter. And then they say, oh, but it's because the United States is sending all of their jobs and factories to China. Yeah, that's because China promotes slave labor, and you can produce stuff there for significantly cheaper because their citizens are getting paid nothing. They get like 1 cent per hour if you convert it to USD. And that's the real reason. So it's not our fault that China promotes slave labor, and you've got all of these companies in the United States going overseas, going to China, and then they somehow blame it on the United States. We send all of our factories in China, and that's creating the CO2. Yeah, that's China's problem because they have slave labor. I think we should go back to the United States, get everyone back, and produce everything in America. It's easier said than done, because how do you do that and compete with China's prices? It is a problem, but that's a problem that also Ramaswamy wants to tackle. That's another story for another day. But the bottom line here is, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you swing it, of course, a lot of these people like China. They're envious of the Chinese government, the control they have over the citizens through communism and the social credit score. But China is just completely out of control, and there's no sign of them slowing down. So when you're talking about CO2 emissions, first and foremost, we all need to talk to China and be like, this is just completely out of control. Because yes, the United States, we're working, we want to get it lower, but we're not the leaders. I don't want to hear anything about per capita. The climate does not care about per capita. Per capita does not matter in this instant. It's all about gross CO2 emissions, and China, they've already doubled us. They're going to pass it even more. And we've kind of cut it down a little bit, or at least we've leveled it off. Now you can see this is from Wikipedia. Ramaswamy has dabbled in political conspiracy theories, such as suggesting that federal agents were involved in 9/11. So that is completely false. There's some, Democratic person who I guess was triggered by Ramaswamy during the Wednesday night debate. They've gone in and completely mischaracterized what he was saying, if you go back and actually look at the context of that quote. So that's just completely false. So we're off to a great start here with Wikipedia, but it says Ramaswamy favors major consent. Okay, we're not going to get into that. Look at the bottom paragraph. Although Ramaswamy says he's not a climate denier, and that's the key thing. They try and straw man it. Oh, you don't believe in climate change. No, we all believe in climate change. Yes, we have warmed up by 1 degree Celsius since 1950, and a lot of that is due to human behavior. I'm admitting it. I believe in graphs, and that's what the graphs are telling me. I believe in statistics, but I also believe in statistics when it comes to deaths and when it comes to the overall Earth changing no matter what in terms of the climate, where we actually had more CO2 before humans were even on Earth because plants emit so much of it. But you can see it later says in the primary debate, he said that the climate change agenda is a hoax and asserted falsely, oh boy, that more people are dying from climate policies than actual climate change. At other times, Ramaswamy has said that he accepts that burning fossil fuels causes climate change, but called global climate change not entirely bad. That's the idea. Yes, we are evolving. As we get more and more technology, there will be more factories and there is going to be more pollution, and we're trying to cut it down, but that's just through evolution. That's what Vivek is saying. He's saying, look, we're going to innovate. And yes, in the year 1600, we were a lot nicer to the climate in the year 1600, but does anybody want to live in the year 1600? Oh, but I thought we all loved the environment in the 1600. No, because we've developed cars, it's easier to live. It's not even close, but yes, there's going to be more problems with that. That's why we as human beings, we are innovating, and Elon Musk is trying to do it. Everyone's trying to solve this climate problem, but the way they're presenting it, where it's like we need to give up our rights and not eat certain foods, it's completely out of control. Certainly, until China gets their CO2 emissions down, we're not going to do anything, to be completely honest, because even if the United States gets theirs to a net zero, it doesn't matter if China's keeps skyrocketing. Ramaswamy criticizes what he calls the climate cult and says that as president, he would abandon the anti-carbon framework that exists and halt any mandate to measure carbon dioxide. So I'm going to get into some actual numbers on climate and what's going on right now. So here are the statistics on climate change, and certainly, I guess before I even start this, yes, we are dealing with a massive heat dome. I used to actually study weather when I was younger, and I kind of backed off from it, but recently I saw some temperatures, the heat index in places like Missouri and Utah and South Dakota, and just how ridiculous it was, and I was like, this is not normal. The media will say, yes, this is our new normal, it's just getting so much hotter, but no, this is actually a once in a century big time heat dome that is over the Midwest, where it's just basically a mass of high air pressure that is stationed over an area. That's why it's affecting the Midwest of the United States. This is very rare. We haven't experienced a heat dome like this since 1936. The winter equivalent would be the polar vortex, if you guys remember. in February of 2013. But these are just numbers, and listen, I'm sure these numbers are going to go up. Absolutely, we're experiencing a very hot summer. I've already predicted they're going to do an entire autopsy on this, and this is going to be a major thing moving forward for 2024 because this only reinforces their point. More than 1,300 deaths per year due to extreme heat, and then you can see it's up by more than 100%, so 1,300 deaths. Climate-related death risk, 1920 to 2020, and every graph you see of this, and this is why they never talk about actual numbers, it's because we've limited it significantly on virtually every single graph. After 100 years, climate change, climate-related deaths approaching near zero. Absolutely unbelievable. And of course, it's the argument to where, oh, but think about the children. You've got people now who are so bought into this stuff, they say, we're not going to have kids because the future climate is going to be so bad. And it's just like the whole long COVID thing where it's like, oh, but you might have long COVID. Well, there's no way to prove that. The only way to prove that is in the future. So you can't prove it right now. It's like with climate change, we can't really prove how bad the climate is going to be depending on what we do and how we put restrictions into place or, depending on that. So the argument, it's not like we can even prove these people wrong because they're like, well, in 40 years, it's going to be this bad. You can't prove people wrong when they're talking about 40 years from now in terms of that. But yes, it's gone way down. And that's why their entire argument is based off of, oh, but in 90 years, the Earth's going to overheat. We're all going to die. That's the whole idea of it. Back in the 1920s, the death count from climate-related disasters was almost 500,000. And in the last full decade, it was just 18,000 or 96% lower. In the 2010s, the risk was just 2.5 per million people, a drop of 99%. Now in 2020, it is around 1 million, which is 99.6% lower than the previous 100 years. And if we really care, we saw those numbers, but if we care about the future, the numbers are way down on climate change. You say it's going to be the future. Think about this. These people say it's the number one issue right now, and the numbers are that far down. In 2020, the number was 8,000 people. That's what it was. The number of dead people in terms of climate change, 8,000. If we really care about our children, let's take a look at fentanyl and the drug that can kill you. What is it, like a 1/100% of a penny, just a little pebble of it can be extremely catastrophic. Fentanyl deaths have increased every year since 2012. And by the way, this is probably lowballing it because we're in 2023 now. It's only gotten worse. But you can see in comparison to so-called climate change, which has killed roughly, the last report in 2020, around 8,000 people, fentanyl has killed 70,000. Now, where does fentanyl come from? And you can see all the different data, all the stuff. More than 2,200 adolescents fatally overdosed during a 2.5-year period. So those are our young children accidentally consuming this. Fentanyl was implicated in 84% of deaths, and that's a 2.5-year stretch. So it's just remarkable that young people, it's that high. But where does fentanyl come from? It comes from the border, Mexico and China. And you know what I recently saw about the border? Because we know they're very soft on it. It's mainly for political reasons. You get people in from Mexico, there's about a 75% chance they're going to vote liberal. That's all they care about. So they leave the border open. And then if you want to secure the border, you'll get called a racist because supposedly you don't like immigrants, when really, we're just trying to stop all of this stuff, all of these people from dying from fentanyl. But fentanyl right now, if you look at, it's a far greater threat than climate change. Yet these people think, oh my God, the boogeyman, climate change in 100 years is going to kill us all, when in reality, we're dealing with a silent killer right now with fentanyl. That's why we need to close the border. Trump was right to try and build a wall. You can see they opened up the wall, Biden did or something, or the Biden administration a few weeks ago in Arizona because of the hurricane, and now it's propped wide open, just people coming in. It is a complete clown show. Unfortunately, Trump was not able to finish it, and then Biden came out and said, oh yeah, we're finishing it, but I'm not sure if it even got done. Either way, the number one goal based on an immediate threat, yes, we're very worried about climate change. It's absolutely real. And hopefully we can create the technology. I do think nuclear energy is going to be the most efficient route. And that's what Vivek Ramaswamy has said. He's offered a solution through nuclear energy. We are going to have to take the plunge and trust our technology that another Chernobyl will not happen based on how far we've come in the last 30 or 40 years here. I think that's probably what's going to happen. Maybe we could even have, all of our nuclear plants in one specific location for the world and just get the energy through that. I don't know. But either way, just in terms of if we're actually worried about a present danger, fentanyl is a much higher danger to us than climate change is. But unfortunately, you're not going to hear it anywhere. It's killing 70,000 people per year. It's killing a bunch more teens than climate change is, than heat is. You're talking about maybe 10,000 people a year in terms of climate change, which is terrible. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm comparing data, I'm comparing numbers. I'm seeing the fentanyl spike, that last report in 2021. Unfortunately, I think it's gone higher, and we do get the flow of it through Canada, through Mexico, which are countries that unfortunately seem to be getting a pass here. In the United States. It seems like a lot of people think Russia is worse than Canada and more of a threat, which of course is not true at all. We should be investing money in stopping the flow of this. It is a direct threat. And this is really what Vivek is trying to say. He can't say it. He has to just get a soundbite in, and that's why it comes off as like, oh my God, he doesn't believe in climate change. It's terrible. If you really want to have a debate about climate change, it would be an hour-long debate just on that topic. Now, with these whole debates, they talk about 10 different things, so it's like you get 2 minutes on a topic, and that's it. So that is the whole idea. Absolutely, climate change is happening. Is the United States the number one cause of it? Absolutely not. That is China. We have leveled it off. We will not play dumb and do this thing where, we're terrible, we're the worst, like a lot of people want to do. It's like America's terrible, America's bad. No. China is far worse than America when it comes to CO2 emissions. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.